going on? Hope everyone had a tremendous weekend. Excited for today's conversation. The thing I think a lot of you are going to take away from this, it's whether you are a CEO who's hiring a VP of sales, but for a lot of you, you might want to be in sales leadership. You might already be in sales leadership and want to figure out, how do I get picked? How do I get to be the person that they grow or groom versus the person they hire from the outside? So I think whether you are someone in a more senior role who's now hiring sales leaders, or you're someone who's more on the front lines, and you're trying to be somebody who becomes that leader, I'm going to try to give you tips. I'm going to tell you very real stories based on my career and everyone, other people I know as well too. So when to hire your first sales leader and when to level up, but also I'm going to talk about how to level up. For those of you who may or may not be, have checked this out before, I'm going to drop this in the chat real quick here. But check this out. This is actually a piece of content we did a minute ago. It's called our Road from 0 to 20 million. So this is for sure for some of my, some of my sales leaders who are, or some maybe CEOs who are trying to figure out, like, how do I scale? What does that look like? All right, here you go. I'll drop that in the comments. As usual, we're still going to keep doing the 5 to 10 minute Q&A. I know we went long last time, so we didn't have time to get into it too much, but go ahead and check out that 0 to 20 million. I think, again, it does, whether you're an actual like CEO, or even if you're like, I want to know what companies look like as a part of this, go check that out. Also, make sure if you haven't signed up for the newsletter on LinkedIn, you can just go to my button and subscribe. It's gone crazy. We're getting like 1,000 new subscribers. But you want to talk about tactical leadership advice, sign up for the Modern Leader newsletter, and you're going to get a mix. And it's not just for junior leaders. It's also for aspiring leaders. It's for leaders that are more senior, that are trying to sharpen their game. So there's a lot of really action-packed content in there for everyone. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into it. So let's talk a little bit about like when to hire your first sales leader. Let's just talk in general about hiring a first sales leader at large, okay? Where you're like, yeah, we need to hire someone, okay? There's two big mistakes that companies make right early on, okay? The first big mistake that they make is, one, they try to make the VP of sales, I call it the Messiah hire, which is like, we're going to hire this sales leader, and she or he is going to come in and know how to build and figure out and build all the foundations, and they're going to know how to put together all the reports and dashboards, and they're going to know how to manage a team of 40, and my friends, it sounds ridiculous, right? It's because it is. And so I think one of the most important, details that I see is, like, most companies don't think about the leader that they need today, right? Who do we need today for the next 3 to 6 months? Well, I actually need someone who's just going to like work with the reps, get on deals. Cool. You need like a manager, someone who managed people before and is used to getting in the trenches. So that's a big one, right? So again, I want to just kind of like think about this, like some of the misconceptions that people have around this. Look, that's why our fractional sales leadership business has blown up, because more and more people start to realize that, wait, I've got 4 reps. Maybe I can just need someone for like 10 or 20 hours who's an expert and loves the building. They love the building phase. Because that's kind of like Jason Lemkin's put out stuff on this in the past, and I think it's a little outdated. I think it's very much like what was a sales leader, because I do think sales leaders can level up as well too. And I'm going to talk about some of those scenarios as well. So here's what I would say. You should not hire a VP of sales. I'm going to tell you, like, number one, right? If you have under like 4 sales reps and you're not planning to scale to like 10 in like the immediate future, the next 6 to 12 months, right? So if you have a few sales reps, instead, what you need is to just lay some basic foundation that you can learn and iterate on. Now, again, you might want to hire more of a sales manager type, or maybe you want to hire like a sales manager and like a fractional person like a Skaled who can help to oversee and do the strategy piece, because it's really hard to do both. So again, I would say, like, you should not be looking for a more senior sales leader until you get to like 10 to 20 sales reps, because they're not, most leaders, once you've done the building a couple of times, you're like, I'm done. Now, we have a lot of consultants that love the building phase. They love putting in place the foundation. But for a lot of you, that may or may not be the right move. I'm going to flip this. For those of you who want to be the first VP of sales, okay? So if you're out there, maybe you've been when you're ready for that next move, maybe you're already a manager, you want to go be a director, you want to be a VP. I would probably say the number one skill that I see leaders missing to be that first VP is they do not have a documented, repeatable sales process. That many times they've just been good because they've got natural skill and they've got pieces of a process, but they don't have a playbook to bring to a company. I'm telling you right now, these leaders, they're looking for this man or woman understands how to build a sales process. I would also say that if your Salesforce or HubSpot reporting skills aren't at least serviceable, go fix that right now. Because early on, you're not going to get a ton of support. So if you are the type of sales leader and you know you have a repeatable process, you understand how to set the foundations for reports and dashboards so you can report on KPIs, you're going to move to the front of the list. So same kind of like flipped advice there. So the next thing I'll talk about is, again, you should not hire a sales leader to document your sales process. Let me say that again. You should not hire a sales leader to document your sales process. Why? You don't need it. Chances are it's already built in your head. You just need someone to pull it out, right? And now I want you to imagine, you're thinking about hiring your first leader. He or she now has this kind of like version 1 that's been documented of the playbook that they can then iterate and grow. Hey, we already have a process. This is what's worked. This is what hasn't worked. And then you can iterate and grow versus that VP is having to figure everything out for the first time. Again, it goes back to, on the flip side of that, if you want to be a VP of sales, if you want to be, and even again, this is applicable to, you want to be a VP at a bigger company. If you don't have the playbook documented for what happens at that stage or step, you're going to get skipped over. Facts. That's what's going to happen. Okay. The third thing is you don't want to hire a VP to build out your tech stack. One, VPs, and look, I love you, my sales leaders out there, but we are very deficient and we are sleeping on our knowledge of sales technology. I cannot tell you how many senior level sales leaders I talk to that don't really understand what the sales tech does. They know at a high level, but these tools are evolving so quickly. And let me tell you why that's an issue. It's an issue because if you don't know what these tools are capable of, it's really difficult for you to build a team that isn't just adding more people to it. Because you don't, as a sales leader, you can't fathom what productivity you could be getting from these tools if they were integrated properly. So again, if you have a small team, if you haven't documented the process, if you need a basic tech stack, you do not need a full-time sales leader. Instead, you need to pull things out of your head. You need to put in place some of these general processes. I have very, very, very rarely seen a wildly successful startup that didn't do this in-house before they hired. What I have seen is a lot of startups who thought that they should hire a VP of sales at like 5 sales reps or 6, 7, 8 sales reps and then flame out. Okay, so that's what I can tell you. So the other part of this talk track here is when to level up or how to level up your sales leaders. Okay, again, I think at a lot of companies that are growing really quickly, there's a notion that you don't have time to level people up, and it's true. Okay, and I'm going to tell you right now, the amount of sales leaders, I think I literally know 2. The guy who was I actually have a call with him. I just met him. He was at ZipRecruiter. There's 1 or 2 other guys I know that were the person who took the company from like nothing to like $500 million, or even hundreds of millions. It almost never, ever happens. And I'll tell you, there's a few reasons for that. Okay. Number 1 is the leap from, let's call it like managing 20 reps to managing 70 is pretty big. Because when you're managing 20, you might have 2 leaders of leaders, maybe 3, but the complexity to run that where you have leaders of leaders and maybe even leaders of leaders of leaders at that point. It's a different skill set. I think a lot of leaders struggle to remove themselves from the day-to-day, remove themselves from the selling and just sit up here. And you've got to be able to go through that relatively quickly. And so my advice for anyone out there who wants to be able to level up, or if you're a company or a CEO and you want to know how to level your current people up, get mentorship, guidance, or advisors who have been there and done it. And not like you're bored, because those guys don't have the time. They're going to give you like a call here, there. No. And again, we have a lot of these engagements too. So we've got engagements where we are fractional support to run the sales team. We've got other engagements where they've got a leader in place who is strong that needs to see around the next corner. Because I can tell you, as a VP, former first-time VP of sales multiple time over, who messed it up and got it right from time to time, I couldn't see around certain corners because I'd never been there and done it. And at times I didn't get the mentorship, and I didn't need a mentor. I didn't need like a buddy I could go grab coffee with once a month. I needed someone who would knew my business, could then say, okay, Jake, these next few hires need to look like this. Let's make sure you get that right. So they're spending, 20 hours a month or so. So you don't need a mentor. A mentor can be great, but I'm telling you, if you want to be the person who levels up, you need to build a network of people or go get coaches or consultants that can come and work with you in your organization, right? It's one of the only ways that I've seen people do it. So again, I would say, look, the first few, your first 0 to 20 reps, someone who is a really good manager is fine. Once you get 20 to 75, you need someone with a proven track record, or to get them the support they need, that has built other leaders of leaders. You got, don't try to hire. And again, then I see people at like 40 reps, and they're only going to add another 20. They go hire a CRO, and I'm like, oh God. CROs are used to spending more time with the exec and the board team and sometimes their leadership team. And they're very, very focused on big picture. You still, until you get to 100 something sales reps, which isn't a lot of companies, you don't need someone who's just back there looking at the stats. You still need somebody who's going to be a little scrappy. But again, I think the key point I want to make about hiring your first sales leader is, do not hire your first sales leader until you've built out version 1 of this. And you can work, again, marketing, you already do this with marketing. You already hire an agency to do this. You probably hired a fractional CFO too. Sales is the same thing. You don't go and hire a CFO when you've got an organization of 30 people. You don't go hire a CMO. So why are you hiring a VP of sales in a 50 to 100 person company, right? Or with 10 salespeople, 5 salespeople, right? So again, scale with the resources and what you need today, okay? And then again, if you are on the flip side and you want to level up, okay, that is what you need to think about. Are you building the skill sets? I tell people I'll give you 2 pieces of feedback here for people that are maybe more on the front lines. Maybe you're a director, maybe you're a manager, maybe you're an aspiring manager, but you want to get there. You need to be building the skills today for the job that you want tomorrow. You should be spending a lot of the times continuing to get better at your own job. But when people are looking for a VP, I'll tell you, I was 30. I just turned 31 when I got the job as the head of sales at Glassdoor. I was the very first pure sales hire period they had made. Now, why did they hire me? I had a track record of leading people. I had a track record of closing enterprise deals. And it was, I had 2.5 years of leading people and showing that my people got promoted at an insane rate compared to my peers, which showed that I could develop people. I had enterprise sales experience. I was the youngest national account rep at the company that I was at of 75 other people with that title. So I'd shown, okay, this guy still gets sales. He knows how to manage frontline people. And I had a process and system. And so when I got the offer letter, and some of you may have heard me tell this story before. When I got the offer letter, it had somebody else's name on it. They rescinded the offer from this guy, and I knew this guy. This guy was almost 20 years older than me, and he would have been a terrible first hire. I'm sure he would have been amazing later, but they hired someone like me. They're like, this guy knows how to manage. He knows how to build a process. He knows how to sell. And so I was the guy to get us from 0 to 40 people. I took us from 0 to 1 million MRR. Right now, what I did a bad job of is I didn't build my network, which is why I'm trying to tell. I should have gotten someone who's like knows how to scale. I was 31, 32 at the time. I was probably just too much ego and like, I can do it all. And so I just didn't polish, some of the things that I needed to get to that, to stay as long as I, probably would have liked to. Obviously everything's worked out, so I'm not really complaining about that. So that's what's up, everyone. If you're either hiring your first VP of sales, you're trying to know when should I level up, or you're someone who wants to level up, this is my, I guess playbook for you. Definitely go check out that 0 to 20 million playbook as well too. So today I'm going to give you my playbook on how to hire exceptional sales leaders, manager to VP, and the flip then of that is how do you become one of those roles faster? How did I move from, working at a company for 4 years to Glassdoor to where I'm sitting next to, I've got Rich Barton in the boardroom here. If you guys don't know who Rich Barton is, if you watch the Uber movie, Rich founded Expedia. He founded Zillow. He founded a couple of Glassdoor, original founder. I've got Bill Gurley. Bill Gurley's all over that Uber movie. He invested in Uber. Bill Gurley's invested in everyone. The guy's like 8 feet tall or something. I was in that boardroom at age 31. And right, I didn't know it at the time of what the importance of that to our success, but it was helpful. But I'm going to tell you how I got there and how, again, I started to reverse engineer the things that I needed to do today to put myself in that situation. So let's jump into it. And again, I'm going to talk about this from a high level first. So the characteristics of someone that you're going to want to hire is someone, and I'm going to give you kind of 3 quick tactical. It's someone who already potentially either have the playbook for the next level, or they have enough of it to where that they can make it repeatable. All right? So that the number one thing you look for in a sales leader is a repeatable system or process. Okay? Number 2, and again, and I'm talking about, it's different, right? This is 10 years ago whenever I was a first-time VP of sales. Let's fast forward, okay? Today, I'm going to put number 2 at sales technology. As a VP of sales, I need to know how these technology and systems work. So when my board comes to me and says, Jake, look, you got to do more with less, right? Which a lot of people have heard that spiel lately. I could say, okay, let's go. I don't need to hire 45 people this year to hit my number. I need to hire 10. And then I've got my tech stack set up here. I've got these other partners like Skaled that I can work with on this other thing that are going to put together my RevOps system for me, etc. So I need to understand the tech stack so I can do more with less. If you don't know how to do more with less, how can you scale and hit the revenue goals? You can't, okay? All right, so I'm going to give you number 3. Number 3, build your network of people, hear me out, that aren't like a baby, like an older brother. They're people who have been at least 2 steps ahead. So it's okay if maybe they're in that role now. You need people who can help you see around corners. So again, what you want to look for if I'm hiring great sales leaders is those 3 things today. Number 1, do they have the playbook? They have a version of the system for what we're trying to build now and maybe a hint at the one for tomorrow. Number 2, do they understand if I ask them, hey, we need to still achieve revenue targets. I've cut your head count by 50%. What are ways that we can get there? All right, let's go. Right? Number 3, have they already started investing in themselves by surrounding themselves, or they know their own limitations to where they know that they're going to need to be able to do that. So those are my big 3, okay? But I'm going to break this down real quick here over the next 7-8 minutes, and I'm going to talk about frontline managers, directors, and VP. In a frontline manager, here are the things that I'm looking for. So obviously they've got a frontline manager, not quite as much. Director and VP, mandatory. They have to have those 3 things, mandatory. Okay. So again, if you're out there, you're trying to hire that first VP or director, even those are the 3 things you have to be looking for. Okay. And so therefore, hey, all my people out there, do you have those skills? Do you have a repeatable, documented process for how you generate that will probably work across teams? Do you know enough about sales technology to be dangerous to where you know how to do more with less? Have you started to build your network of people that you can rely on who have been to the mountaintop that you want to climb on and then have maybe been to the next mountaintop but now are somewhere else? Okay? If you don't have those three things as a director or VP, I'm going to go find someone who has them. Okay. Frontline managers, slightly different. Okay. A frontline manager, I'm going to call out a couple of like non-negotiables. I want someone who knows how to build trust with their people. And you build trust by being very good at what you do. You don't have to be the best seller. You just have to be good. Okay. And two, you understand what motivates the individual. When I look for frontline managers, I want people who understand, and I was not very good at this when I first started in leadership. I'll be very honest. I kind of overly managed people to my process, and we still crushed it, but I think it caused a lot of heartburn for people. So I would say that's one of the most important things. I want someone who understands that each person, we all are motivated by there's some similarities, but with this person, I push buttons 1 and 3. With this person, I push button 2. With this person, I push buttons 4 or 5, right? And there's all mutations. There's not infinite things. So I want somebody who knows how to get to the heart of that and build trust. Number 2, I want someone who understands how to look at the metrics and come up with smart solutions to problems. I don't need a manager who shows up for a pipeline meeting and says, guys, we need to do more activity. Hey, everyone, we're missing quota. I don't need the raw guy or woman. It can be helpful at times, but I need someone who can look at the data and say, okay, what do we need to do? What do we need to change? I look for that beginning, that kernel of you're not coming to me with a problem. You're coming to me with a solution as your director, or your VP, or your CRO or CEO. So frontline managers, think about that. If you want to be a frontline manager, or if you're hiring for a frontline manager, does this person know how to build trust? And do they know how to, again, look at data and come up with unique ways to solve problems, right? I don't need them to be, I don't know. They're not solving, this isn't rocket science, but I need them to be able to think of different ways other than just more. If I have a sales leader who's like, hey, you're behind on numbers. It's, you've got, for the quarter, there's 8 weeks left. I don't need a sales leader who's going to say, we're going to do a contest to see who could do the most activities. Yuck. No, I do not need that sales leader. That's the old school sales leader who's not successful today. Okay, for a director, what do I look for? And again, I'm going to generalize a little bit here. But for a director, I look for those things. They know how to build trust, right? They know how to look at and come up with unique solutions. The extra layer is this person knows how to remove themselves more and more and more from situations. What do I mean by that? This person knows I can't skip level. I have to be able to, I can skip level, checking in, how are things going? But instead, I don't jump in and do. I think as a frontline manager, by the way, that's not necessarily best practice for a frontline manager either, but I think with great directors, they're not aloof. Because let me tell you this, there's a lot of directors who look like they're good on paper because they're like, yeah, I let my team do whatever. That's not a good leader either. Being aloof, meaning I let them figure it out on their own. It's a good strategy in certain situations. It's a terrible strategy in other situations, right? Because it's all based on the individual. So I'd say great directors know how to keep a pulse on what's going on with the front lines because you're just one level removed, but they don't feel the need to jump in and solve all the problems. They know how to work with the person, coach the person just like they would a rep, but they coach them, hey, so, okay, you've got an issue. Tell me more. What do you think you should do? Great, go try it. You inspect, but you're able to remove yourself, from a lot of the doing. But you still have to know that you've got to get in and get your hands dirty. Okay, VPs of sales. So now you're leading leaders or leading leaders of leaders at this point. Again, I'm all about the skill development piece. So you have all the same characteristics that I mentioned before, but I think really at the VP level, I'll tell you the one that I sucked at, is you've got to be good at working with a lot of other diverse groups in the organization. Engineers think way different than marketers, than finance, etc. So if I'm a director, if I'm hiring that first VP, that's why a lot of people, again, like fractional sales leadership, I feel like more and more organizations, and I'm not just saying this because this is what we do, it's why we have a lot of sales leaders that are going this way. More and more leaders should be hiring fractional sales leaders, because this mix of skill sets that I'm talking about is very, very hard to find in one person. And it evolves very quickly. And the worst is when you hire that person, they're there for 9 months and you have to fire them, and it's so disruptive. So the fractional route can be the right route for a lot of you in these bridge situations, or to take you through one of these phases. But as a VP of sales, the extra layer of skill is, how does this person work with non-sales departments? Because if they can build trust with people, they can come up with creative solutions to solve problems. They're good at still inspecting, and VPs of sales still need to go spot, inspect here. And they can play across departments. That is what I look for. And that's what I sucked at my first VP of sales job. And it's why I eventually was replaced, right? I was eventually replaced because at the end of the day, I wasn't leveling up the way that I needed to take the company from, $1 million in MRR to 10 million in MRR. Maybe I could have, I don't know. But I didn't do a very good job of building the mentorships and the networks, like I said in the very beginning, to get to that level, right? And so, that's on me. So that's my formula. So for a lot of you out there, whether you are thinking about how do I level up, what are the things I should look for in a VP of sales or a director or manager, or you are a frontline person, a manager, director, VP, and you want to get to that level, I just gave you the blueprint. So for anyone out there trying to grow their career, today has been a tactical one. Okay, whether you are a growing company and you want to look for ways to scale, again, stop thinking that sales is a special flower and can't scale with fractional resources like you do every other department. CFO, marketing, operations, like part-time chiefs of staff, part-time COOs, fractional people at the right time is the 100% right. Or maybe you don't need a full-time sales operations person. Great. You need someone for 20 hours, but you don't want to go work with a one-off person. You want a company, right? That's why we do what we do at Skaled, right? So again, understand in today's world where there's a lot of uncertainty, there are a lot of different ways to scale. If you are going to hire full-time, follow the little blueprint I gave you, right? That's how you're going to find the best people. But you're also going to look for the same thing in maybe, do I need a fractional leader who can help us to bridge a gap? Because we're somewhere in the middle and I don't know. I don't know if I need a director type or manager or VP. Then you shouldn't be hiring full-time for one, okay? So that's what's up, everyone. Hope that was helpful. Have a great rest of your week. I'm going to jump to our company all hands now. So again, if you all need anything, you know what to do. Hit me up on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn inbox is pretty dang close to zero. I will say that right now. So if you hit me up now, you will have a very high likelihood of getting a response. So hope this helps some of you out there as you're growing your career. You're trying to get to that next level. We'll see you on the next one.